when you know that's a priority and that's what I want to say yes to, it makes everything else easier to say no to.
Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. Laura is a wife and mama to 10 amazing people. She's the founder of Mama Systems, a coaching business that helps mamas bring peace to their homes through systems so they can be intentional with their people and show up as the best mama possible. Welcome back, everybody, to the Relational Parenting Podcast. We are here this week with Laura Hernandez from Mama Systems. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Woo-hoo.
We are so excited to have you. Yeah. Say hello, Papa Rick.
Well, hello. I said woohoo.
Oh.
Yeah, hi. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, so Laura, our guest this week, is here to chat about all these systems you came up with. I think every parent out there knows that it takes a lot to raise children, whether you have 1 or 10, like you have.
Oh, my Lord,
and in order to keep things running and to make our environment less chaotic, it helps to have some tips and tricks and systems in place. And it sounds like, Laura, you have quite the system in place. So you have 10 children total. Is that correct?
That's right.
All kinds of ages, it looks like, from the pictures on the website.
Yeah. Our oldest is 17 and our youngest is 4. So we kind of have a wide range of people in our home.
Yeah. And you guys, what started you? Was organization and system something that you were already were interested in before you even had kids? Or was it something that was like sparked from the necessity of after having children?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of both. I think I've always liked things orderly and neat and in their place, right? I've always tended to be like that. I can think of times when I was a kid that was true.
Mm-hmm.
But then once, after we had 4 kids, and then I felt like I was doing great. I really had it down, really had the mom thing down. And then we had our 5th biological and we moved across the country to adopt 3. And so in 6 months, we went from 4 kids to 8 kids in a different state, and all these different things were so unraveling to me and just felt so unsettling. We were in a rental house. We had purchased this house. We're remodeling it, and it felt chaotic. And I was finally I was just living in survival mode, We just got to get to the end of the day. If I can get everybody in bed, we're really killing it.
Right.
But that's a long time to just keep everybody alive. And so I finally said, we got to figure out something. We got to do something. I can't live like this forever. Yeah. And that's when I really started searching hard for systems that worked for us. And everything that was out there wasn't anything that worked for our very large family that had special needs kids, where some were going to school, some weren't. We were homeschooling some. We were just all over the map, and nobody had anything for families that were all over the map like we were. Yeah. And so started the process of trying to figure out what's really important to us, what really matters, how can we implement that and make that a priority. And kind of that process I walked through is now what I get to help other moms walk through, because no system, all my systems aren't going to work for you and your sweet new baby when it comes. We're different. We're all different. Our husbands are different. Our jobs are different. Our schedules, our kids, everything about it. And so that customization is kind of where the exciting part comes in, because it's like a puzzle. So.
Yeah, when you're explaining the system, you have to understand the underlying principle before you can adapt it.
Yeah.
It's here's why we're doing this. What does that look like in your completely unique system that's similar to mine, but not precisely the same? Yeah, that's cool. That sounds like it could keep you busy.
It does. It's really fun.
Well, and like you mentioned values, what's important to us, because when you looked at all the other systems out there, maybe you could like pick a couple or one from here or there, but you guys had to really sit down and go, what are our values? What matters to us? What do we need to organize? And like, this is our schedule. And this is like, each kid has their own needs. And that's hard when you have 1, 2, 3, 4 kids, like, trying to do that with 10, like I would have to guess you're like a master organizer at this point, but going back to that values based and being able to customize your systems for anyone, I think is super important and super valuable.
Yeah. And I think so often as moms, we live such reactionary lives. We're just kind of going from thing to thing.
Yeah.
We as individuals in life, really, not just moms, but
sure,
it's so easy to just kind of deal with the next problem as it comes. But really that leads to chaos in us and chaos in our home and chaos with our kids. And so having that plan in place it's just beautiful and sweet how it all works itself out. I'm not saying things are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Like we know crap's going to happen and we know these things, but I at least know I have a plan for like talking about priorities. One of the things we're people of faith. And one of the things I'll be like, yes, this is the most important thing. And you would come into my house and you'd be like, I don't see that at all. How is it important to you? Like, just totally missing the boat on it, And so when that's a priority and that's what I want to say yes to, it makes everything else easier to say no to.
There you go. Priorities is important. It takes me back to like farm families. People on the prairies would have large families, right? It was kind of a business unit, and that requires a certain amount of that requires a system of some kind so that everybody knows what they're doing. Any organization, any intentionality you can bring into the system on purpose instead of being reactionary, that pays dividends down the road. That comes back with interest, because there's going to be a lot of interruptions with 10, 12 people in a room. And good for you. I'm anxious to learn how you bring order to all that with 10 kids.
Yeah.
So with your, now once you decided, we need these systems, we're putting them in place. Do you feel like you truly are a lot less reactionary around the home? And do you feel like that has affected your parenting?
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I think that an example I often give, and this may seem like a little much to throw this out there, but it's to show you that we don't have it all together in our home. We're not all walking around like the little halos over our head, right? We're working on the work.
We're normal people. Yeah.
I think so often people are like, oh, you must be so organized and so patient. And I'm like, I'm also a human, so thank you.
Right.
That's why I'm telling you this story. But with our 3 that have, I don't know if I said this on the recording yet, but our 3 adopted buddies all have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And that is a very hard disorder to live with. And there's a lot of aggression. They feel chaotic, and it comes out on everyone and everything. And so I think that especially with that going on in our home, having these systems in place, like having a laundry day and knowing laundry's going to get taken care of, and knowing I have a meal for that night. And I know that like I have all these things in place. When something goes down, like let's just say a child threw a brick through a window, just saying, might happen. That happens. I can stop and go like really deal with the issue and not, there's part of me that's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like there's a part that's chaotic, right? I get that. We just broke glass all over the place. But then I'm able to go figure out what's going on with him and really connect with him and relationally attach and try to make that better and try to heal whatever's stirred up in him that's causing him to act that way. We're able then to communicate on that level, and it takes it out of, oh my gosh, I have so much to do right now. I've got to go cook dinner. I've got to go start laundry. I've got to go. All those to-do lists. It's like, no, it's okay. Those are going to wait, and that's okay.
They're not all waiting for your fingers to make it happen. You've got people. Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
That's it.
I think that's such a huge part of what gets in the way, or what can get in the way of, this either relational parenting, intentional parenting, people call it a lot of things, is that chaos, is that reactionary way of living. And I mean, we all do it. We all slip into it at some point during our days, weeks, and months together, because like you said, we're human. But I think living, part of like what you've created with Mama Systems is intention. You've created a very intentional environment for your home. And so when something does go wrong, it's like, well, your body, right? Because we go into a physiological response when we react like that. So it's physiological, and then it's emotional, and then it comes out verbally. When your body and your mind know that there are systems in place and everything's going to get done, and you can rely on one another if something goes wrong, then your nervous system's literally more capable of like taking a deep breath and just dealing with the present moment without feeling like you have to rush through it or dismiss your child and just go to your room. I'm cooking dinner. I can't deal with you right now. I love this. And I think that having some semblance of systems going on in the household can contribute greatly to an intentional family and a relational household.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think that often people ask, like, what's a system? Like, what are you talking about? Exactly. And I kind of see it as like anything that we can take off our plate mentally, like to lessen that decision fatigue, so that we can show up and be our best selves with our kids.
Exactly.
Because it's all those decisions, all those things all throughout the day that you're just, by bedtime, I'm done. And like, I can't handle any of your fits. I can't handle that. You're just done. Right. But if you've had 10, I mean, we make something like 50,000 decisions a day. So,
right.
I don't know. But if we've like can lessen that by 10,000, and we know what we're going to wear on Monday morning, and we know like how groceries are going to get to our house. We don't have to make all those decisions like while we're at the grocery store, but we have things in place to take that off our plate. We have kids helping in the house. We've built this team mentality. Oh my goodness. Like it's just so much, so freeing and so much lighter. And so that's why I'm just the biggest fan of systems. I realize it sounds really cheesy and really corny, but they've brought me so much life just that I'm able to show up and like connect with my people.
No, that's it. It's great you found that. They teach that kind of stuff in the military leadership, where you boil your principles down so that when things do go crazy, when the bombs start to fall or whatever your particular situational chaos is, that decisions are easier to make. Okay, when we're doing this, we need these three things. What are these three things? You're not trying to boil it all down in the moment, And it sounds like you've come on the same kind. Come upon the same kind of thing yourself, developed it yourself. So yay for you. That's in the midst of all the chaos, coming up with the system of systems. That's great. That's phenomenal.
I think that decision fatigue and overwhelm are probably two of the most common words I hear come out of moms' mouths. Usually moms, not going to lie. I'm sure dads feel it too, but it's usually moms that I hear it from. And we all experience decision fatigue, no matter like whether you have kids or not. Everybody is, like you said, I think it's like 50 or 60,000 decisions a day or something. And so anything that you can systematize so that you're not having to constantly make that decision all the time would be a huge help. But something else that you said is that you've created a household of teamwork. Mm-hmm. And that's one of our biggest principles here with relational parenting, is that we don't want to set up the family as mom and dad versus the kids, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or, whatever your family looks like. But, parents versus kids, as in like, we're trying to like, everything falls on the parents' shoulders, and you've just got to get the kids to do what you need them to do all day, every day. And you're constantly managing behaviors or fixing something. But creating this household of teamwork where the kids have input and the kids help, and they have responsibilities of their own.
Yeah.
and things like that. So I'm curious what, is that something that you guys started like from the get-go? You knew that's what you wanted to do when you started a family, or is that something that came along later as you started to systematize things?
I think that I read this book called Cleaning House by Kay Wyma, and she's a lovely lady. And she talks about this 12-month experiment that she did with her kids and teaching them how to do things so that when they left the house, they knew how to throw a party. They knew how to do their laundry. Like, she's like, I don't even know if they know how to wash their sheets.
Hospitality. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Things like that you're like, oh, okay. I've never thought to teach my kids that, but I do want them to know that. And so that just kind of got the wheels turning a little bit of like wanting to give them more responsibility in our home.
Sure.
And I think that it really became more necessary when we had so many little people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We had 5 kids, 4 and under, all in diapers. And it was a lot. And we had our big, I'm like quoting, our big kids who were 8, 6, and 5 at the time. Those were our big kids, our big helpers. And they each had a buddy team that they were responsible for. And this is not like we put our 5-year-old in charge of parenting. Do not hear me say that, please.
Oh, that's another one of our favorite words. That's good.
Yeah. So like, no, but when we're leaving the house, I need you to help me find Andrew's shoes. Like, that's important. And that's just one less thing. So they're helping in that process, right? And so it's just kind of narrowed down for them of who they're helping get out the door and who they're helping buckle in the car. Yeah. So again, that's not a decision I have to make, and we don't have to argue about it because expectations have been set. And so that's kind of led to like, okay, well, what do I want my kids to be like when they leave the house? What do I want them to know how to do? I want them to know how to clean up their room.
Yeah. Great.
I think we've all had those roommates that are less than wonderful to live with. I don't know how to say that.
How diplomatic are you? Yes.
I had a roommate one time where I opened the cabinets and there was a bowl of cereal and milk in there. And I was like, what? It's like, and I think she probably had ADD and lovely lady. There were things like that where I was like, what is going on here? Like, why do we? So I don't want my kids to be the roommate that other people are like, oh my gosh, what have I done? You know?
Yeah.
This is my main goal in life, is to raise a roommate that people aren't regretting.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not really, but I do want them to know how to be good roommates because they are going to be living with, not only in our home, but when they get married, when they go off to college, like all these things that they're going to be living with other people. And
if you want to have relationships, here's some not to do's. Don't leave your cereal laying around in a cabinet
to rot.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. And it's best to teach them intentionally, like you're doing. To have that in mind. When you're dealing with them, that's a great goal. That's a great priority.
Yeah, so those are things we call roommate responsibilities in our house, and they're like in the morning and in the evening, everybody has a roommate responsibility, and that typically looks like in the morning you're getting yourself dressed, and you're like we very early on are like you're getting yourself dressed, like at age 2. You can do this. You can put on your pants. Here's how we do it. Sit down.
Picking out your own clothes and stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Which, if y'all looked at some pictures, you'd be like, yeah, they clearly pick out their own clothes, right?
Absolutely.
They put on things. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I don't have the energy to fight that. Like, that's not a battle I'm willing to fight. So
that's what their friends are for.
Yes.
Would you wear those socks with them? Yeah.
So taking care of themselves, eating breakfast, putting their bowl in the sink, brushing their teeth, like little things like that you're like, no, I just want you to know how to do that. You need to get up and do that. And then at the end of the day is kind of where that teamwork mentality comes in. Yeah. And for us, it looks like 5 o'clock jobs is what we call it in our home, because we have an alarm go off at 5 o'clock. And this is partly because I will sometimes forget that I need to cook dinner for everybody. The day will go and it'll be like 6 or 7. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't fed anybody and it's time for bed. And what are we doing here? And I need to go make dinner. And so that 5 o'clock alarm just kind of helps me stay on track with our day.
Yeah.
And
that's a system. That's one last thing you don't have to remember.
What to expect. You know what to expect. Dinner,
everybody else has the job that they're in charge of. And so they're supposed to make their lunch and lay out their clothes. So they have a job to get ready for the next day, whatever that entails for that kid. And then to help with dinner. So that could be watching the baby while I'm cooking or setting out silverware. Like even we had a 2-year-old, he would go and put forks on the table, and he loved it. Like, he loved being a part of the team because he had a job, and that felt important to him.
Yes.
Starting them so early is so great.
Say that again. Say it again.
Raise them up right. That's right.
So great. Yeah, because they get to, like, it's just what we do in our home. Like, there's no questions about it. This is the expectation that you're a Hernandez, and you're going to act like a Hernandez. We're going to be a team, and we're going to do this. So, getting ready for the next day, helping get ready for dinner, and then everybody has a zone that they're in charge of. And this is one of the fun things. I really feel like this has helped with the team mentality, because regardless of if you made the mess in the living room, if your zone is the living room, I expect you to clean the living room. Like,
ownership.
I don't care that you didn't make it a mess. Like, we're looking out for each other. She's over there cleaning up a mess that she didn't make, right? Like, so we're all doing this together. We all have jobs, and they may not seem fair, but we all have jobs, and we're going to do them, and we're going to show up,
That is great. That's great for life going forward. You're always cleaning up somebody else's mess in life,
Yeah. And not happy about it.
Get used to it.
But you do it anyway.
Someday you'll get paid for it more.
Well, and even in like when you have your own household, or, roommates, unfortunately, or you get married, there's a lot of prevention of unnecessary, squabbling if you walk into a living situation knowing that you may be cleaning up someone else's mess every once in a while, and that they are going to clean up yours. Like, I mean, couples fight over who does the dishes more, who does this, who left this, and, socks on the floor, and this, and so many little like squabbles, specifically in romantic relationships, can be avoided if we're both contributing to picking up each other's messes when we have the time, and of course not making the messes unnecessarily, but we are human, and we do those things. And so I think I love the zone. I love all of this, but the zone thing, I think I have only very recently learned about that as a tactic for when you have kids. Making the chore part of the chore list, obviously it has to be age appropriate for each individual child, but then putting someone in the family, however many people are in your family, in charge of one area of the house. And then it, like, the thing that I read, it was like that it rotates then, like every week. So like I might be in charge of the bathrooms one week, and my husband might be in charge of the kitchen for 1 week. And then any kids that we have, someone's in charge of the living room, someone's in charge of the dining room, someone's in charge of their bedroom or whatever. And then the thing is that you just tell them, like, anytime you see that there is a mess, it's your responsibility to tidy that room. And that takes the burden off of the parents to constantly be scanning the environment for things that might need cleaned up or put back or whatever, and then having to pick a child to ask or coerce or convince into cleaning it up, or arguing, all of the things that can go into that. And it puts the accountability on the child. And that accountability can be taught at such a young age that I don't think people realize often.
The accountability.
And it makes them feel, like you said, your 2-year-old putting forks on the table. It makes them feel powerful and included, and like they're contributing.
Yeah. That's great. You get both sides of it. It's not just hey, I told you to do that last week and you didn't do it. It's hey, we're all doing this. You forgot or whatever. And you get the responsibility. You get the good feeling from helping the team out, doing your part as well as the accountability. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when everything's working as it should, I do, if I can, recommend that we not switch jobs all the time, like on that week by week basis. Because what I've found with moms is that I think if it's just between you and your spouse and you're switching who does the kitchen, who does the bathrooms, awesome. But I think when you're getting kids involved, then you are now in charge of figuring that out, switching out jobs, moving the chore wheel, doing the
supervising, rotating, sure.
Yeah. And then I go into the living room. I'm like, wait, who's in charge of it this week? And what? Right. You know, that was me last week. So what are you in charge? Like, it's just so much. And you're having all these conversations about it. And then, no, I did that last week. There's arguing amongst parent and child and amongst kids about things not being fair and how
fairness.
Just all the things. And so if we can just set it once and say like, hey, your job is this, and leave it. So I know when I walk into the living room, if there are blankets and pillows on the floor, Sam, you please come tidy up the living room. Like, done.
Yeah.
That's it. I know it's Sam.
That expectation you set where I know maybe it is sometimes not perfectly fair. Things are not in perfect balance. There's some, you have to learn to play around, and if it gets way too unfair, that's fine, but sometimes it's not perfectly fair. That's not for discussion.
That's not the goal here.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things I've heard and what I kind of believed when I was wanting to do that and switch out things, I'm like, well, I want them to all know how to clean the toilets. So we're going to switch that out every week. Like, you want your kids to know these things, but there are seasons where you can train them in those things, and there's seasons when you can switch things up. But I think just the switching on a weekly basis make it confusing for them, expectation wise, confusing for you, and then the system gets dropped because it became too complicated and too hard to manage.
No, I love that. That's a great tip. Mine was, I just like anecdotally watched a video. So this is good though, to because you've been doing it for a long time, right?
I'm sure she had some wonderful, that may be working in her home and maybe she has the bandwidth to do that, but
you're like, I don't. It's a decision I can just take off my plate.
Got to match our bandwidths. Yeah, that's a good thought.
I love it. So what is your favorite system that you have come up with in your own home?
I think that 5 o'clock jobs is my favorite.
Yeah.
Simply because it is that teamwork mentality. I think I used to go from being in the kitchen, annoyed that the house was a disaster after I cleaned it all day. The house is a mess. They were watching TV. I asked somebody to help and then I get arguing. There's just something about that just fires me up and then makes me, and I'm eating eggs, and I'm ticked off and whatever. Yeah. But if I am making dinner and we don't have the TV on and people are helping and they're being a part of the team, there's just something beautiful and peaceful and wonderful about that. Yeah. That's so opposite and so polarized from that bitter, angry lady that I'm doing everything by myself.
Changes
that we're now doing it all together.
Changes your role. Yeah. If everybody's up and moving and they know they're supposed to be up and moving, they're kids, maybe they forget, maybe it's not perfect, but that's a real family. That sounds, that's a great healthy family dynamic. Where were you when I was 23 having kids? That's so great.
I think you did okay.
Wish I'd have known
that. I lost what I was going to say, but it came back. So I love the 5 o'clock alarm, because it's just a signal to the whole family. Oh, it's 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, this is what we do. So there's no arguing. There's no room for negotiating. There's the whole family is doing this thing at 5. Yeah. And there's that's part of teamwork too. Just if you play a sport in high school, everybody's running laps together. Everybody's doing the sucky part of practice together. And everyone's doing the chores at 5 p.m. And it also, the other piece of what you said is that bitterness that we did an episode on mom rage a long time ago.
Resentment.
And because, again, more often than not, it's the women in the home who are handling the mental load. And they're the ones scanning the environment and seeing the 800 million things that need to get done and feeling alone. in doing so, and feeling like they are the managers of the house and their spouse and kids are like their little delegating employees that they have to constantly be keeping track of and assigning things to. And that can feel so lonely, right? And then eventually turn into like bitterness or resentment. And then you become not your best self, and you become more reactive and more resentful and angry towards your kids and all of these things. And I think that another beautiful part of this, of systematizing your household, is that it takes the pressure off of you, the mom or the parent or whoever, whoever is carrying that load most of the time. It delegates it once, and then you don't have to keep track of it anymore. Ideally, it's not a perfect world.
You monitor, you don't have to hover, to make sure it gets done.
But then you've got people in the house who understand how much work it takes to run this household and how many things there are going on all the time. And then you raised little humans who grow up to be big humans who go out into the world and know how to manage and contribute instead of expecting things to just be done for them. I mean, I like go back to the roommate thing. I subleased, I think, for like 3 or 4 years, back in my 20s. And I mean, I had them all. I had all the roommates. I had wonderful roommates, and I had horrible roommates. I had to evict people. I mean, but I mean, there are people in this world who grow up and they didn't learn anything, and they just sit around, and their bedroom just becomes like a trash pit because they never had to clean their own room or take out the trash or anything. And they don't see it. That's the insane thing, is they don't even see it. Like, you say like, hey, like there's trash everywhere in your room. And they're just like, huh? Like, what? Like, how do you, because they but you'd think like 3D reality, everyone can see there's trash on the floor, right?
Yeah.
But they can't. Not everyone can. And it's just insane to me, because they just ignored it their whole life because someone would come along and do it for them.
Yeah. There's a great, not to get too far off track, but that's, I guess, what I do. There's a great YouTube video out there of a guy sitting on the couch and telling his girlfriend about this magic table he's got, where he takes his clothes and he throws things on the magic table, and poof, they end up in his drawers, cleaned and folded, and his wife is about to start beating on him. It's that can happen if we're not trained from a young age and don't grow a little bit as we go. I've been guilty of letting as a bachelor in a bachelor pad, letting trash pile up myself. That's very true.
She's totally judging you right now.
She was describing me. We were making eye contact there.
No, I wasn't. Not purposefully. I was thinking of someone out here in Colorado. Yeah. I had forgotten about your tendency.
I was depressed and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, I've had roommates like that too. Used to go away for weeks at a time to work, and we'd be in hotels together with people you worked with, not necessarily people you knew, and you'd find out who would leave their stinky socks laying around on the counters and stuff. Roommating is a good education, and this kind of stuff prepares you to get out there and, I don't know, relate, be part of the system. Your kids are going to be terrors when they go out there and reorganize the world. The families, the fallout from what you're sending out into the world is just fantastic. You're going to affect millions of people over the next 3 or 4 generations.
Well, I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I fear, that's what part of it is. Like, I see all these entitled kids that everything should be just given to me and done for me, and I shouldn't have to pay for college education. Of course, the government should. I'll back it up there because I probably shouldn't jump on that, but
that's all right. It'd be good for comments.
Yeah, so sorry, I just said that on here.
That's right.
That's okay.
But I just feel like there's the generation that's like coming out into the world. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like everything can't be done for you. Like we've got to be responsible for ourselves and our actions, and ourselves. My goodness gracious. So that gets me all fired up. We can change the subject.
No. That's good. That sounds good to me. I don't know where Jenny wants the conversation to go, but I remember having an experience going to visit my first kid in college in a dorm full of early 20s kids sitting around and being appalled at how they were behaving when on their own. It's like, you guys should know how to behave better than this in your own tribe, and it's only.
I don't expect much from college age people.
Well, maybe that's part of the point, but still, when I was a kid,
college students are often just drinking and acting like idiots because they're on their own for the first time.
Yeah, I was amazed.
Was it because you were in the room? You were shocked that they were acting like that with like an adult in the room?
No, it was a
real adult.
it was a big. It was like wings of a dorm, and there was a big common area, and you could see 8 or 10 rooms and what was going on, and it was just like walking into a nursery school where the teachers were all having a meeting, and the kids were just guys whizzed by on skateboards, and it's like, oh my God, I expected better of a bunch of young gentlemen.
Not in a college dorm.
That was it was not like my college dorm, but we were not exactly model citizens, but we were quieter anyway. Not so much stuff.
No, but I actually love this topic, Laura, because we kind of dabble in it in our last few episodes. Actually, we talk about the generational differences. I'm a millennial. Are you a millennial or are you Gen X?
I think I'm technically a millennial. I think I was like that. I was in 82. So
yeah, there's that borderline.
You're like on that cusp. Yeah.
I feel like I don't feel like I am by any stretch of the imagination, but technically I am.
I know. Yeah. And then my dad is a boomer, but barely.
A late boomer. Yeah.
So we do, that's one of the great things about this podcast is we get to talk about across generations, like how things have changed. And I think that from the boomer age where it was children are to be seen and not heard or not speak unless spoken to Gen Z, where now it's like everything I say is important and everyone should listen to me. Like we're on this podcast, we're trying to find this like middle ground. And I think things are starting to swing back towards a more balanced perspective on parenting, where children are important. Children should need to have a voice. Children need to be respected. Children have big feelings and need to be lovingly walked through and guided through those feelings and acknowledged. But I think that what we lost along the way is that children also need structure and discipline and good role models and leaders and good habits and to learn how to take care of a household, not just be put in front of a TV while someone else takes care of the household for them. Like, I think there was a mix up somewhere along the way where we went from all the way over here and we swung all the way over here. And now we're like, oh my God, what have we done? And we're trying to get back to this place in the middle. And that's one of the reasons that I named what I do relational parenting. It has a lot of similarities to gentle parenting. There's a lot of words: conscious parenting, intentional parenting, mindful parenting, like all of the different words. But none of them sat quite right with me until I found the word relational. And for me, relational means the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. Like, like not everything is not rainbows and sunshine and perfect, but everything is not terrible and hard all the time. But you can't have one without the other. And you have to learn how to navigate both in order to be a whole human being who can function in the world.
Yeah. It's like the both and of life.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about like what you just said, like, yes, connecting with your kids and having that relational conversation and getting the why behind behavior and all of that. And there are consequences to actions. Like, and there's like, and you have to be respectful. We're going to be respectful in this home, and we're not going to talk to each other that way. And you can't talk to your parents that way. And so, yes, what you have to say is valuable. And this other piece, right? So the marrying of the two is the sweet spot where I feel like we really need to be.
And it's the hardest spot as parents. That's the hardest place to be. It'd be a lot easier if we just let our kids do whatever they wanted, or if we just told our kids to shut up all the time and obey.
That's why
those are both much easier.
That's why I like this podcast. Your generation, when I was talking to your friends who had all gathered for your wedding, I was struck by how much the things they were talking about, mental health and parenting, and things that I did not talk about as as part of that generation years ago. Their parents would get together and we'd have kids and we would talk about things to do to kids, but we were not really talking about parenting styles and priorities and how do we get them to be good citizens later on and know how to be a positive part of a relationship. They were different kinds of discussions, and it was kind of like don't spank them, don't punish kids, or my mother used to tell me, put a sweater on, I'm cold. It was just like, do what I tell you to do kind of thing, kind of parenting. You kind of go authoritarian or the other way. There was very little what you're talking about, the fact that there are pendulum swings between from generation to generation. You see a bunch of entitled kids, and I always have to go back and say, let me talk to their parents. I like to get to know their parents a little bit, because they didn't get that way all by themselves, hopefully, unless they were just raised by wolves. And to see how one generation sees how the last couple generations did it, and I think the fact that you're having the discussion in this generation is a good thing, because I think we didn't maybe have those discussions, didn't know how, or didn't think of it, or whatever, in prior generations. I have high hopes for you guys changing the world effectively, I guess is where I'm headed. It's nice to hear you have the conversations and figure it out. Be willing to say, I don't know, and talk to people and figure things out.
Yeah.
I think we have access to a lot more information than you guys did when you were becoming parents.
Yeah,
and I think
helps.
That there are many more topics that are less taboo. And I think people, I think 35 to 40 years ago when you started having kids, there was probably a lot more like keep playing your cards close to your chest. There's a lot less vulnerability inside of friend groups. There was
Stigma.
A lot more surface topic conversations. And I think, because of the age of information now that we have the World Wide Web, I think that more people are aware of more things in it. And that's one thing that we have been given that's positive from that, is that we are more exposed to different topics and then able to engage in conversation with one another about them and go deeper.
Yeah.
There are a lot of pitfalls to social media.
I was going to say, an upside of social media, finally, that's not making kids crazy.
But Laura, you started making these systems just for your own household. What brought on the idea for you to create Mama Systems and to start to teach other people how to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who was really struggling with her schedule, and she had a kid that was newly diagnosed with some things, and she was talking about the doctor's appointments and the therapy appointments and all these things. And I was like, oh, I got this. Let me come up with the schedule for you. And like, we'll figure it out, and we'll figure out who's driving who and when, and we're, all the things. And it was so fun. I had so much fun doing it, like getting all of her information and like putting it all together, just because that was easy for me, right? Like it was easy, one, and two, it was like a finite, like, here it is. It's a complete project, right? And I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so I'm an achiever, and I like things done. I like to complete things, and a lot of times parenting is not complete. Like, it's not done. It's just forever and ever. And so I really like the idea of like handing somebody a complete system and completeness that will have a real effect on them, and you can see the piece that comes from that. And so I just found so much joy in that. And after a few friends, I was like, I think I want to do this. And so I started Mama Systems from there.
Cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Practical application. And people talk about different people have different skills, and you happen to be, a very organized and effective at passing it on, teaching it, or, applying it. And it just takes all kinds of skills. I guess it goes back to the it takes a village kind of thing. We were in my generation, we all were a little careful about reaching out and revealing we were not the best organizers and not the best at this and not the best at that. And that ability to come together. Good for you.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
When we can kind of step into those roles,
like
fully in ourselves and realizing who we are and what we're called to, and to be able to share that with others, and then to reciprocate that and say, hey, I'm not great at this. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
I think those are beautiful things, and they really create a great intimacy between our friendships.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. I think that's something else that's kind of coming back around, maybe from not even any generation that's sitting here, but just an older way of living life where neighbors helped each other and communities were smaller and more intimate. And people had different skills and would trade on skills instead of always like just, hiring a service, that's what we have now. But anyway, I think that since 2020, there have been studies done that since 2020 and the pandemic and so many businesses shutting down and things, a lot of people had to find a new way of contributing to the world, and earning an income. And a lot of people, there's a skyrocket in entrepreneurs all over the place. And I don't know what year you started Mama Systems, but I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to and have relationships with now the pandemic forced them to pause and look at their life, and whether they got laid off or their office shut down for a while, it forced people to kind of be like, look around and be like, oh, we need each other. And also like, am I actually doing something that I care about? Or could I live a more happy, satisfied, fulfilling life doing something that I love, and look at my own skills and how can I contribute to the world in the highest, best way? Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a reemergence of entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship based on community and giving back and helping each other.
What's my place in this group of people I find myself in? What do I have to contribute?
Yeah. Yeah, I started in 2018, so it was before the pandemic, but I do think it's a beautiful, like even in our friend group, of like seeing this need and being like, oh, I can help with that. I know how to serve you in that way. And that's not only life-giving for me, but it's life-giving for them too. So
yeah.
Part of the body.
So I just had another question and it just disappeared.
It's that baby.
It's the miracle.
It is. She's stealing everything.
She is.
She steals my brain.
Loading her little brain up, it's grabbing a thought when it goes by.
Oh, so how so you mentioned customization early on in the conversation. How does your, the way that you teach, one, is it a course that's pre-recorded? Do you work with people one-on-one at all, or individually, like have like phone sessions with people? Like, how do you take what you do and customize it for an individual?
Yeah. So I do have a master course, and that kind of walks you through the whole process without me there. It's like pre-recorded videos and worksheets and homework and all of that jazz, right? But then the most fun for me is coaching one-on-one, because I get to know the mom and I get to know the families, and we build these relationships. It's this beautiful thing that
you can read a book on neurosurgery, but you kind of want to coach when you actually start doing it, right?
Yes. I wouldn't really compare what I do to neurosurgery, but yes.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So I get to, we typically do 90 days of coaching, and that first week I'm just getting to know them, kind of figuring out what their pain points are, what their strong points are, what they really want to be doing with their life, like ways that they feel like they're completely missing the boat. Because a lot of times when people come to me, there's a lot more negative than it is positive, right?
Yeah.
Like we've hit the rock bottom. We realize we can't do it all. We're drowning.
Yeah.
We feel overwhelmed, all the things. And nobody wants to live that way. And so that's where I'm normally found, is at the end of that. And so to be able to come in and just be like, look, this first week, like I typically do a free coaching call, and I'm like, okay, right now we're just going to do this one thing for you. Mm-hmm. And so for you, it might be laundry. And for another person, it might be the dishes in the sink. That's the most overwhelming thing when they wake up in the morning, dishes are piled high. Yeah. Like it's different for everyone of like what gets them.
Pick a thread to start unraveling kind of thing.
Yeah. And so let's figure out that one system right now. And then they get to go implement that and see like, oh my gosh, well, that really worked. And then the joy is when after that, and they come back and they're like, I want more of that. And we've got to slowly like peel the layers and start delegating things out, start taking things off our plate, start automating things and eliminating things. And you feel freer, you feel lighter, right? And then we have time and the space to do things that we want to be doing of, I have a mom right now who's like, I really want to be writing a book. Another mom that has a ministry for people who have had miscarriages, but they don't have time to work on these things. Like they want to be doing these things, but they don't have the time or the space or the energy to be able to do them. And so then we're able to create that space in their lives and allow them to do things that they want to be doing. And it's so fun. It's so fun to watch their kids learn how to participate in the family, to build that teamwork mentality, to have kids who are wanting to help and willing to help is amazing. So that's what I get to do.
You sound like a systems analyst. Picking things apart. Where's the system? We'll fix something over here. Okay, where's the next pain? Okay, let's go over here and see what's doing that. And pretty soon we'll have this sucker running like a top. That's very, very systematic. That's very cool.
I've never thought of it that way. I like that.
That's what I used to do. I was a system analyst, computers and stuff like that. And the approach. It's funny how the approach can be the same in such different arenas. I never thought to apply it to raising kids.
Yeah.
Running a family.
Well, in coaching, I think one-on-one coaching is my favorite setting too. Because the relationships are so much fun. And it's, while you were talking about how you help moms let's just find one thing and we'll work on that thing this week or whatever. And then we'll come back and we'll reassess and we'll look at this other thing. And that's something that, at least for me in my own life, and I imagine is a similar experience for a lot of people, is that when you're in it, when you're like in the chaos of your own life, it is so difficult, if not impossible, to be an objective outside viewer and to be able to look in and pull apart all of the pieces and start systematically going after each one of them in bite-sized chunks. At least for me, if I'm like looking at my life, I'm like, there's 17 categories and they all have to happen now or it's going to be terrible. Yeah. You get overwhelmed. And like, it's so much harder to pull it apart yourself and systematize it yourself. And it's a lot of mental work. It's a lot of, it takes time. And you have to like carve out time to do that work, to sit down and try to write the notes and make the system and blah, blah, blah. And like with coaching, like I always say I am a coach because I've had coaches. Like I know the benefit of outsourcing or delegating all of that mental work to someone who, one, can see it from a perspective I can't see it in, and two, can do it in 2 minutes flat instead of me trying to carve out hours a week and figure it out myself because I'm distracted by 800 other pieces of my life. So yeah, I mean, hiring a coach is yet another system that people can put into place to take a load off.
Add me to your system.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's just what came up for me while you were talking, Laura, was the fact that we're talking about delegating. We're talking about, involving our family and kids and your wider community and friends, helping each other because we all have different strengths. And the same goes for coaches or hiring professional services. Like, what can you outsource? What can you afford to, so you can take your time and your energy back and show up as the rested, peaceful human that you want to be for your family and for yourself.
And it's so complicated.
I'm thinking about that.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah. Well, I think that just that emotional piece that we have attached to all these things, it's like going to see a counselor, where I think I could probably counsel myself through the scenario if it was somebody else, right? Like I could totally do that. But I'm ticked about it, or I'm angry about it, or I'm done. Like, there's just so much emotion there. And so having somebody come in and say like, well, really, is like, you're only doing 2 loads a week. Is laundry really that important? Like, let's figure out how we can get this off your plate. Like, just able to look at it objectively without that emotion piece is so big. Yeah. Because I'll suggest something and it's like a very simple, but then I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that. That's so simple. It is very simple, and we can but there's no emotion there for me. I can just see it. And whereas if it's in my house, I'm sure that there's emotion attached to it. And I have lots of opinions about it,
And that makes it hard. Being emotional, it just kind of automatically disconnects your rational side to some extent. It's hard to think rationally and calmly when you're upset. So having a calm voice to talk to and reframe things, that would be get you started, get you calmed down, be very valuable.
I love that you mentioned that emotional attachment piece plays such a huge part in it, because that it affects everything. It affects how we parent. Like, if our kid acts a certain way, it's hard not to like take it personally or feel like we're being attacked or whatever. And that plays into how we parent too, because when our child does something directly opposite of either what they have been instructed to do, or that they know better, but like, even as adults, we know better. Like, I know if I eat this Big Mac, I'm going to feel like crap tomorrow.
Do not need that bowl of ice cream.
And yet sometimes I eat the Big Mac and I eat my consequences the next day. And our, to expect our 2 and 3 and 5 and even our 16-year-olds to have mastered their emotions so they can just be perfectly logical and rational creatures all of the time is insane. But it's such a difficult part of parenting, because everything they do, we tend to have an emotional attachment of some kind to, and we create meaning around it instead of just being like, oh, this is my kid and they made this choice. how can we navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very hard to subtract yourself from the equation and be logical.
It is. That's a real limitation. So that's a skill we all need as parents. That would be a good skill to work on then, right?
Yeah. I love Brene Brown's, like how she frames everything of like the story I'm making up is this, right? And so if that can be our first thought of kind of, because our brains are made for story and we want that. We wanted a complete scenario, right? And so when you threw that rock at my head, I make up that you want me dead. Like that's what I'm doing right now. And he's like, no, really? I'm angry or whatever. Like if we can kind of separate ourselves and parcel it out as to what I'm really feeling, I'm feeling this because I'm thinking this, and I'm thinking this because of all this history, but really that's not where you are at the moment.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a kid throw a rock at my head, just for the record.
That's complicated.
I mean, I have.
Are you related to him?
Not
the kid that threw the rock?
They were like aiming at my head. They were just throwing rocks. I was in the way. But yeah, no, I mean, there's like we do that with kids. We do that with each other. That's a huge part of marriage or friendships. Like someone takes some action that has nothing to do with us. They do whatever they're doing because they are who they are, or they have a need in the moment or whatever. And, my husband forgot to pick up ice cream on his way home from work. And so then I create the story that he just doesn't care about me enough.
He's not thinking about me enough. Yeah.
Really like he gets home and he's like, he had a patient die that day and just forgot because he's a human being, or, so it is, it's separating ourselves from the stories that we write, right? Our spouse didn't write them. Our kids didn't write that story. Our kid just did something impulsively because that's what kids do.
Yeah.
And then we write a story and we make ourselves feel terrible.
I've got to go back and reread Brene Brown. The book that came to mind for me was the 4 Agreements, and one of which is don't take things personally. It's so hard when someone, especially if you're both upset, someone says something and interpreting what that means and causing, getting yourself to respond to it the way you would like to respond to it ideally, is sometimes a challenge because you get wounded, and then now it's like, where's my rock? You threw a rock at me. Where's a rock? And that's a challenge we all have to work on. It's just that much more complicated with kids because you got all these little people running around testing the fences around you. Stir things
Laura,
up
is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about as far as like what you do or anything like that?
I don't think so, but I would love to offer, I have a free chore e-guide that kind of walks you through getting responsibilities in place for your kids.
Awesome.
We have age-appropriate chores in there, and then just kind of the process of how you go about setting that up and how you figure out really what's important to your home. Because you can have your kids dusting the fans every day, but really does that bring peace to your home, or is it better to have them pick up the living room because it's in a main space, right?
Yeah.
So kind of narrowing that down as to what's important, what do I really want them to learn, and then how we can implement that.
That takes some working through. Yeah, nice. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that on your website. So we'll link your website and any other links so people can follow you either on social media or anywhere else. And then they can go to your website too. You have a couple of courses on there, and then you've got that free guide as well, right? Okay. And yeah, just tell everybody real quick where they can find you, and then we'll also link all of that in the show notes as well.
so Mama Systems on Instagram and Facebook, all the places really. And then my website is mamasystems.net.
.net, I noticed. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope that all of the mamas and papas who are trying to make their own lives a little easier, check out your website and download that free guide. And I think I'm going to.
I was going to say, I'm going to pick up your master course here. That's pretty reasonable. Yeah. Call Laura. She'll help you get squared away.
I love that. Yeah, it would be so fun too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Laura. And for everybody else out there, happy parenting and good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Be well.
Bye. Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.